Hello, Bengal fans. I'm Forever Bengals. I said before I was going to do a video about Chris Henry, so here's my video about Chris Henry. Chris Henry was probably one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL, and he was also one of the victims, or of poor decisions. He made a lot of poor decisions himself. He was a victim of himself. And when I say he was a victim, I mean he was a victim of himself. He made a lot of poor decisions when he was younger, when he got drafted by the Bengals, and it caused him to get a bad image, a bad boy image. But everyone who seemed to know him always said that he was one of the brightest, most soft-spoken individuals that you would ever meet. And when he got released the last time, I was kind of torn on it. I didn't want him to be torn, but then again, he did, another mistake. And how many mistakes before you have to let a guy go? And then when they gave him another chance, I was actually kind of excited and happy about it. And then in the later part of last year, he played with such a fire and intensity that, wow, it was like, watch out, watch out for Chris Henry in the next year. And in preseason, he was doing it in preseason too. He definitely did a lot of good things in preseason, and then in preseason he messed up his hamstring, and it hurt his chances to run the ball. Well, run the routes necessary and run deep. He was basically, he was on the field, but he wasn't able to play as effective as we'd like him to have played. He was definitely a threat, and he was also known as the Steeler Killer. He could run deep. He could run pretty good routes. He also had speed, and he had size. He had everything that a quarterback and offense would want in a wide receiver. And when in the Bears game is when he started really showing what he could do, because in the Bears game he came in, that's when his leg finally healed. His hamstring was no longer an issue. And after the Bears, during the Bears game, we had put up 48 points. Our offense was clicking on all cylinders. Carson throwing the ball to Chris on a regular basis, throwing the ball to Chad, it was like, who do we cover? And then we used our power running game to get the job done. So he was a big weapon in our offense, and a guy like that with those type of skill sets, you really can't replace them. They're so hard to find, and hopefully the Bengals, will be able to find someone to replace that type of talent, but they'll never be able to replace that person, that the individual who was Chris Henry. And he could run. I mentioned his speed and the things he could do, but when he got hurt in the Baltimore game, with the Baltimore game, we were moving the chains effectively. Then he gets hurt, and then that's when our offense started sputtering. So that's how big in the offense he was, even though his stats doesn't reflect it. The fact that he was still, when he was in there, we were moving the ball more effectively, and now that he's not in there, our offense is kind of stalled down, and we're trying to find a replacement for him. I think we might try to use the speed aspect of Jerome Simpson, and let him go deep like we did have Chris Henry, and I think that's going to help open up our offense a little bit more. I'm hoping. Uh, it's just a shame to know that he'll never have his chance to play, any more football for the Bengals or for anybody for that matter. It's a shame to know that his life. He was on track to be the comeback player of the year. I mean, it's been 3 years since he'd last gotten in any trouble, and he's straightened his life around. He was talking about his marriage to his fiance, and it looks like this is a domestic dispute, but we don't know the full details of the domestic dispute. And I know that ESPN and the news, they're going to keep bringing up the domestic dispute, the domestic dispute. They're going to keep bringing up his past as being this bad boy and everything else. But Chris was not a bad boy. He wasn't a terrible guy. And as far as this domestic dispute goes, I know that he was deeply in love with his fiance, and he really wanted it to work with her. And as far as whatever this domestic dispute was, I'm sure it wasn't as bad as we all assume it was. Yeah, it led to his death, but for some reason I have a hard time believing that he that him or his fiance maliciously intended to hurt the other person like this. I think it was more of a thing where there was a misunderstanding, probably a little bit of a fight. She went to leave. He chased after her. He jumped in the back of the truck. She might have hit a bump, or she was speeding, and he lost his, he had lost his footing or whatever, and he fell out of the back of the truck. And she may not have realized that he fell out of the back of the truck, but she didn't think he was actually hurt, so she kept driving. Um, Again, I don't know the details. I'm not a news guy, but I'm not investigating it. But when all the details come out, we'll be able to have a better understanding of what's happened. But as far as this domestic dispute, um, everyone says it's out of character. So to me, it seems like it's probably one of those things that happened, and it's a tragedy it happened, but it's not. It's not Chris Henry being a monster anymore, and it really is a shame because, like I said, he changed his life around. He turned it around. He went, for 3 years without any incident, and was doing good for the Bengals. And then all of a sudden, he gets hurt. He gets pulled away. And he gets hurt, and he's hanging out with his family and rehabbing and everything. And then something happened, and now he's no longer with us. So, fellow Bengal fans and fellow fans of football, pray for the family and pray for him. I hope whatever happens, that everybody finds peace, and that Chris is able to still keep an eye on his family, because that's one of the big things for him, was taking care of his family. I know that it's a sad thing. So, fellow Bengal fans and just everybody, just pray for him and keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And here's to Chris Henry. Hoo day.